a very good morning to you, dear listeners. A very warm welcome to Radio Sri Lanka as always. And this is the 11th hour program. A very, very special program, as Sharifa said, sponsored by Transparency International Sri Lanka. And we are going to be talking about a very, very important topic this Tuesday morning on the airwaves of Radio Sri Lanka. And I have a very special guest with us here at the studio. Yes, Winoth Lakshan, Program Manager of the Political Sector of TISL, that's Transparency International Sri Lanka, gracing our studios here this Tuesday morning. Hello, Winoth. A very good morning to you.
Hello, Mario. Very good morning to you too.
Thank you so much for coming here to speak with us in these new normal circumstances, of course. Before we get to the topic at hand, which is recovering stolen assets, Winoth, Transparency International Sri Lanka does a lot for the country, and Transparency International Sri Lanka has been featured over the airwaves of Radio Sri Lanka before as well. But let's remind our listeners about the role and scope Transparency International Sri Lanka.
I'll keep it very brief, Mario. So Transparency International Sri Lanka is a national chapter of Transparency International, the leading global movement that fights corruption. So TISL raises awareness on multiple things, and mainly it's about the damages occurred or damaging effects of corruption, and also we work stakeholders such as government, business sector, civil society organizations, and as well as I should not be forgetting the general public. We work. We also focus on raising awareness on multiple things, such as right to information, Victims Protection Act. Also, we do have a legal advice center where we provide free legal services to the general public. And also we engage with public officials at the national level and also at the grassroots level in terms of drafting national policies and also building their capacities as well.
Okay, Winoth. So transparency is at the core of the organization, and it is a service to the public at large. Thank you for that. Let's get to the topic at hand, Winoth. As the topic is on recovering stolen assets, can you please, as perhaps a summation, explain to our listeners first what assets are? I mean, what do you mean by assets? Because to recover it, you must know what it is. So if you could just talk a bit about assets before we go into recovering assets or recovering stolen assets.
Sure. Even here, I will try my best to keep all my explanations as simple as possible.
Yes.
In the interest of the listeners.
Yes.
So assets are, I would say, movable or immovable items, such as land, apartments, vehicles, your phones, and even if we look around here, the electronic equipment, and also jewelry, money, and also things like shoes. All of these could be considered as assets.
And to recover means to kind of get back in the linguistic sense, or does it also entail perhaps, what if you can't get it back? Does it entail compensation or remuneration of sorts?
So Mario, before we go to the recovering part, let me take a step back here. So I'll explain why we need to recover.
Okay, great.
So if I'm to explain why, it would be because these assets happen to be acquired through some sort of a crime. And assets acquired through crime are known as proceeds of crime. So this could be indirectly or directly acquired. So the key here is that the assets are being stolen, and therefore whatever the stolen assets are should be like we should get it back
Okay.
to the origin country.
Okay.
So recovery means
Okay.
getting these stolen assets back to the origin country.
Okay.
If I may, I'll explain this in a very simple example.
Okay.
So let's say a public official, like this is a hypothetical scenario, obviously. So a lay person goes to a public office to get some service, let's say to get a permit or some documentation done. And to speed up the process, the public official asks for a bribe. And this lay person pays him or her a huge amount of money to get this service done.
Okay.
So the money paid would be proceeds of crime.
Okay.
And also, now whoever gets a bribe would not want to keep it, in a domestic bank.
Yes.
He or she might want to deposit it in an offshore bank, or they would want to buy something, let's say an apartment in the UK. So this person goes and buys an apartment in the UK. So now we need to recover. Now, can we recover the apartment? Not really, because we can't move the apartment.
Yes.
So here what we do is we recover the equivalent value
Okay.
of the apartment. So that value will be the recovered.
Once again, Winoth, if you could reiterate to our listeners what you mean by proceeds of crime, because I think that is something our listeners need to be aware of and kind of enter into a recovery of stolen assets through that. So if you could reiterate once again what you exactly mean by proceeds of crime, that would be great.
So in one line, in a very simple form, proceeds of crime refer to money or any asset, for that matter, that have been acquired through crime. That is what we call proceeds of crime.
So we know how does let's talk about the Sri Lankan legal framework later, but how does TISL fit into all of this? What is the role of perhaps Transparency International Sri Lanka in this specific topic of recovering stolen assets? Like, just to be very blunt, what do you do?
So actually, to answer that question, Mario, I will have to touch upon certain aspects before we go to the Sri Lankan context.
Yeah.
So TI Sri Lanka has been a part of a drafting committee appointed by the Stolen Asset Recovery Task Force, which is commonly known as START, a presidential task force. And we have been involved since 2018 in terms of drafting the legislation and also advocating for this legislation to be enacted so that Sri Lanka could recover whatever the losses that's been incurred. So I will be talking a bit more about what the involvement has been in the next yes.
We know, so by what you are saying, just before we go to that, can the average ordinary citizen avail of your services, or is it more at a very national level that you're looking at?
So there are two aspects, indirect and direct. So if this is an individual or some party who's directly affected, then the direct party would be compensated first, and then we will be looking at the society or the country at large. So that's how the mechanism usually works.
Thank you so much, Sharifa. Yes, we are coordinating this program from 3 different places, dear listeners. So I'm in conversation with Winoth here in this safe bubble outside the SLBC, and Sharifa is actually inside the SLBC at Studio C9, of course, and we have a technical team here. adhering to all the COVID-19 health regulations. So thank you so much, Sherry, as well, for coordinating this from 3 different places. We know that's wonderful, isn't it? It's so nice to have Winoth Lakshan here in, well, a makeshift new studio, program manager of political sector of TISL, that's Transparency International Sri Lanka, and we're talking about the recovery of stolen assets. Winoth, where does the Sri Lankan legal framework fit into all of this? I mean, what is the current status of legal procedure in Sri Lanka in the larger process of an individual or a group embarking on recovering stolen assets?
So, Mario, currently, Sri Lanka does not have a composite law to recover stolen assets.
Okay.
However, domestically, in different laws, we capture different aspects, such as asset freezing or confiscation. So, freezing means if there's an ongoing case, using that asset, no transaction can be done. And confiscation means once a decision has been made on a case, the assets will be taken to the custody of the state.
Okay.
So, sir, like I could give a couple of examples.
That will be great. Yes.
Of laws that we cover. Different aspects of asset recovery, and one would be the Financial Transaction Reporting Act, we also known as FTRA, and also the Money Laundering Act, and to add one more would be the Customs Ordinance. So those and also there are a couple of more, but I just wanted to give a few examples.
Yes.
However, to fill in this gap, in 2018, as I mentioned earlier, a drafting committee was appointed by the Stolen Asset Recovery Task Force. So in the drafting committee, it consisted of Bribery Commission, the Police, Financial Investigation Unit, the FIU at CBSL, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Attorney General's Department, Bar Association of Sri Lanka, the Financial Crimes Investigation Division, or FCID, and TI Sri Lanka was also a part of this drafting committee.
So, Winoth, where is this in the kind of stage at the moment? Is it still a proposed legislative framework, or has it kind of reached a stage of enactment? How will it get to this stage?
So at the moment, what we have is a proposed legislative framework. And with the information that we have, we know that it has been submitted to the Cabinet of Ministers in 2018. However, after that, we don't have much information to say whether it has, whether it has any progress thereafter. In terms of how it, enacting the law, there should be consultations with wider groups of people. For example, human rights activists or human rights organizations. And then to cover all the aspects and then to make it a strong law.
So we know what you're saying is civil society and civil society organizations as a whole play a very important role in this topic at hand.
Yes, actually, Mario, if I may give, I would like to, share an example. So involving the civil society organizations has been recognized as an international best practice in terms of recovering stolen assets. And also, the best example that I could think of is a Nigerian example. Actually, Nigeria does not have a composite law, but they have is a mechanism. So, using this mechanism, in 2017, Nigeria, Switzerland, and World Bank come into an agreement, including Nigerian CSOs or civil society organizations as a third-party monitoring body.
Okay.
So this is how civil society could represent or participate, because on one side, civil society actually represents the general public.
Yes.
And also to make sure whatever the assets that are being recovered are not being corrupted again and again.
In that process as well. Okay. So, Winoth, what are some of the other countries that use this mechanism? You mentioned Nigeria. Any other nations that perhaps we can learn from or imbibe?
So United Kingdom is one other country, Switzerland and France. If I may give an example, again from Nigeria, this is quite an interesting example of Sani Abacha, a former president of Nigeria from 1993 to 1998. 5 years he was reigning Nigeria, and he actually became a president after a military coup. So after becoming the president, during his reign, there were many corrupt activities which was committed by he himself as well as his close relatives. And what they have done is they have deposited or taken the stolen assets to other countries, and they have invested them in different ways. So, however, using the asset recovery mechanism, Nigeria has been able to recover approximately about $800 million from New Jersey, Switzerland, and also Ireland. And also another example would be Bota Foundation, which is in Kazakhstan. This foundation was actually founded in 2008 by the government of Switzerland, Kazakhstan, and USA. And to return 115 million of US dollars, and using these recovered assets, they have established a mechanism to support poor children, youth, and also families in low-income families in Kazakhstan. So this is how, these are a few examples.
So we know this mechanism to recover stolen assets is very timely, isn't it? It is needed in society.
I would say yes, because it could help any development programs. And also, currently we are talking about different mechanisms, how we can, develop as a country. And also we have been signatories to different international commitments, such as an example, Sustainable Development Goals. So even for us to progress in achieving these sustainable development goals, covering all 17 areas, I think this money or assets, if recovered, could be used. However, we need to have a proper mechanism as well in place, which is what has been proposed in the proposed legislative framework in itself.
So I think it is our wish and our hope that it will actually be enacted, and this is where Transparency International Sri Lanka, civil society organizations, and the public at large play a role in this. So it has been really wonderful talking to you. We know time is ticking, and we were talking about the recovery of stolen assets, and you quite rightly explained most of or all of the key components of our topic at hand. Before we end our program this Tuesday morning, because as I said, time is ticking, Transparency International Sri Lanka plays a major role not only in the recovery of stolen assets, but in the embodiment of the term transparency at large. So as a representative of TISL here this morning and speaking on national radio, what is the message TISL Transparency International Sri Lanka, what is the message you want to give the general public at large, not only both in terms of recovery of stolen assets, but in terms of transparency at large?
Actually, from an organizational point of view and also personally, I think we believe that public is at the heart of upholding the values of transparency and accountability. So I would like to request everyone who's listening to this program to raise their voice against corruption, because they have the power. Our general public have the power, and also to advocate for strong laws such as asset recovery. Or like, it's not only one party who could be benefited, it could help the entire nation
at large.
Yeah,
that's a wonderful message, Winoth, and I think Transparency International Sri Lanka plays a very, very important role in that process at large. I think, if you remember, we also had a conversation a few months ago about the Integrity Icon program, and I think integrity as a whole is something TISL believes in. So I think that message. And we know sometimes we might feel, is there a point in us raising our voice? We won't be heard. I am just a single person or a group of people. There really is no point. Let's just go ahead with the system. Let's just move on. But what you're saying is even your voice, the hearing or kind of, speaking up is the first step, isn't it?
It is, and we even during our programs that we conduct at national level or even at the grassroots level, when we engage with general public, we encourage them to raise their voices, because that's the starting point.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you need to engage, or even if you want to know more information as to how and why, what are the achievements, due to this raising voice, we are more than happy to, communicate those things as well, if you get in touch with TI Sri Lanka.
Yes, exactly. I was just going to get to that, Winoth. So this is a message to the public as well, to get in touch with Transparency International Sri Lanka. Whatever issue you are having, whatever issue you are facing, TISL will assist you in whatever way possible, isn't it? If it is, of course, in terms of transparency.
Of course. So, as I said earlier, our mandate is fighting corruption.
Okay.
So, anything that falls within our mandate, TISL, our team is more than happy and willing to help any citizen in any which way that is possible and that we can.
Yes, thank you, Winoth. And having interacted with TISL twice now, I know that you're a very dedicated and friendly team, and a very you could be approached. So it's a very, very important message going out to the general public. If you are facing any issue in terms of corruption or transparency at large, you could get in touch with TISL, as Winoth said, and they'll be more than happy to resolve or assist you in that process. So time is up, Winoth. Thank you so much for joining us here at the SLBC. I know it is a bit of a new environment. I would have loved to take you to the studio and kind of converse there, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to make do with this secure bubble. So we were in conversation with Winoth Lakshan, Program Manager of the Political Sector of Transparency International Sri Lanka. And Winoth, we wish you all the best and your team all the very best. And we really do hope that this proposed legislative framework is enacted, and we wish you, once again, all the best. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks a lot, Mario, for having me, and wish you all the best as well.
And with that, it's time for us to end our wonderful discussion this Tuesday morning, and it's over to you, Sharifa Tahir, all the way in C9 across the building.